Good morning, everyone. If everyone could find a seat, we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to start this morning by making a few introductions. I'd like to introduce the traveling crew that's been around the state. This is our second week of touring. This is our last stop for the tour. We've had really good turnouts. 2 weeks ago, we were out in the western part of the state, did the west half. We took a week off, and then we came back to the east here, and we were doing the east half this week now. Turned out really good, except for Tuesday morning. We were supposed to be in Park River, and we were sitting up in Grafton at a Senex, and a little bit stormy up there, so we did sit there for about 4 or 5 hours before the weather let up, and we were able to at least make our evening run that up to Langdon that night, and so we did have to cancel out on the Park River, which is unfortunate. I appreciate when everyone does come out, and we like to make this contact and get the information out to township officers as best as we can, and it's nice to do it in person. And we were able to get to the county and leave some handbooks up there, but it's just not the same. It's nice to get this personal contact that we like with the township officers. So with that, I'd like to introduce the traveling crew. Mr. Larry Syverson, our executive director, has been with us. In the back, we have Barb Knutson, our treasurer, that's been traveling with us. Our attorney, Tom Moll, has been with us. He'll be coming in here later. We have Mr. Mark Verke that's been with us. He's the retired North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund representative. We've had my wife, Julie. She's in the back. She's been traveling with us. She does the ATLR support for us. If you use the ATLR program and you have questions about it, you can certainly ask Julie. If you don't know about the ATLR program, it's the annual township ledger report. It's a computer software program that does all your township bookwork for you. It's a very good program. It was designed by Marty Visto. It's been used by townships for several years now. So if you're interested in it, you can certainly talk with Julie, and she can get you some information on it too. Okay, Richard said the county did purchase it, and it is available. So it is a very good program and helpful for keeping them records as accurate as can be. So we also have been traveling with Upper Great Plains and North Dakota LTAP. Several representatives have been with us. Today we have Denise Brown with us from North Dakota LTAP, and we also have District 2 Director, Mr. Richard Linney. The district directors, they don't travel the entire state with us, but they come in during their districts when we're in, and they come into the communities that we do the meetings at. So with that, I'll call up Barb Knutson for her report.
Thank you, Lee. And thanks for all of you for showing up this morning. It's a really nice sunny day. We have had all sorts of weather on this trip, but this is a great one today. It hasn't always been that way when here. Lots of times we're dragging books in a snowbank, and so this is great. Glad to see the chairs filled. Taking time out of your day to come and learn and spend time together is important. The dues that are sent out, and I do bill certain counties that don't have associations. I bill them separately, but if you have an association, you should pay your dues to the county association, and they in turn send the state dues on to us and keep their portion. So if you have any question on that, get to me and I'll answer your questions on that. if there's an association, we would like the name, the address, and all the information, or at least the name. I have them if they are on my mailing list, I would have that. But if, I'd like all of the officers for the county association, so we can put that on the webpage. Larry said he would put that on there. So the officers, the contact numbers and that type of thing would be on there, so you could go in and look for your county and you could find out who is on your board. And that would be helpful for communication also. So get that either to Larry or to me and you'll get it on the website. The website is new and Larry's put a lot of effort into that, so check it out because there's lots of information there and there'll get to be more, so keep up on that. After the annual meeting dues or meetings are over, make sure that you get all of the information for not only the new officers, but present officers that have been there. I don't care how long they've been there. Put everybody's name on the list and then we make sure we don't miss anybody. The auditors are really good about helping us with what they get for lists, but they can only give as good as they get. So we need to make sure that we give them good information so that they have the current information. I do find sometimes I've found that guy hasn't been here for 5 years. Well, how does that happen? I don't know. You know, it's just because somebody didn't put them on the list. Or didn't take them off the list. And then the person replaced them didn't get on the list. So that's the problem. When you have new people coming on, we need to get them on the list so that they can get the grassroots. And if they have emails, that's a great way for communication. Also, Larry does a constant contact and we can get information out to people on a quicker basis than through a quarterly newsletter. So all that information is very valuable to us and to you. I really appreciate it when I'm working on the mailing list. I understand when people don't answer the phone if it's a number they don't know. I mean, I understand that. But when I leave a message and you call me back, that's awesome. Because not everybody calls me back. And then I have to keep bugging people to get that information. So I really appreciate that when you help me with that. There's one thing I've noticed in the receiving checks. A lot of them only have one signature on them. And in the century code in section 580802, it tells us that we should have, if we have a clerk and a treasurer, that we should have 3 signatures on the check. The clerk and the treasurer and the chairman. If you have a clerk treasurer merged, then you'd only need 2 signatures. But in my opinion, that is a protection to us to have 2 signatures on those checks. So I would suggest that if you're not doing it, get a couple of names on there. I have one county that I just started getting checks directly from them. And if I didn't have the mailing list, I'd really be in trouble because I would get an envelope with no return address on it. The only clue I would have is that it was from a certain township because I couldn't read the signature. And if there's 2, I'd probably have a better chance of reading at least one of them. So those things are important and I just wanted to pass that along. So thanks for being here. The work that you do is important.
Thank you, Barb. Mr. Richard Linney.
Had the mic in Devil's Lake and it wasn't turned on. I'm Richard Laney. I'm actually on the state board, but I'm also on the Wells County Township Officer boards that kind of serve. I'm the guy that gets all your checks, so if you got them along, drop them with me. Otherwise, I think in that letter we sent out, my mailing address is there. But the dues are $225 now because the state gets 200 and we get 25. other thing I was gonna mention, the annual meeting date now, according to the Century Code, it can be any time in March, but don't forget that if you have it earlier, you still need to have 2 weeks, or is it 10 days or 2 weeks?
10 days.
Notice, so you need to get it in the paper ahead of time if you're gonna change. A lot of townships are just gonna keep the same date, but the advantage to moving it up is if you have to have a storm date, you got some options, so. And then the other thing that got raised last year was, you can have up to $500,000 in a road fund, it's an emergency fund, so. That's another thing, you don't have to worry about having too much money, some of you have that. And then I think they're gonna talk about this grant program, but the least that I could mention, I know there was townships applied for the grant, but didn't probably get them in our area, but there was 2 in Ramsey County that got, one got 990,000 at South Minnewacan Township, and Poplar Grove Township got 192,000. So there is money that, if you grant, if they think your application is a good one, there is some money to be gotten out there. So keep trying, I guess that's all you can do. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Richard mentioned that we can have our meeting any day in March. And the thing that is nice is that if you put your ad in, your 10-day notice in, you can actually include the snow day date in your ad. And that way you are covered. So if by chance you do have a storm on the day that you did schedule your meeting, as long as you advertised it in the same advertisement as the first one, you can go ahead and have your second one. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility on the date, and if by chance we do get a storm that comes in and plays into that. So, yep.
When you guys write your checks for the dues, I appreciate it if you put WC, Wells County Township Bar Association, because some of them might get are made out to NDTOA. So just, I sometimes have to change the N to a W. Just something to think of.
Thank you, Richard. Our first speaker for the day will be Mr. Mark Verke.
Guess I gotta walk behind it. Okay, good morning, and now that everybody woke up with that, we'll be able to get going here. No, today I'm gonna talk a little bit about road safety, township road safety, and some of the things that issues that we have on township roads, and things that we need to be aware of, that we need to make sure that we keep track of. And what you need to remember is that they're your roads, and you're responsible for them, and you're responsible for your right-of-ways, not just the road, but the right-of-way also. And how many of you have any hazards on your roads? So if you know you have hazards out there, why haven't they been eliminated? I mean, it's that, and that's the thing that we need to do. We need to look at is, we know what the problems are. Sometimes we need to figure out a way to address them, whether it's to have them fixed, whether it's to have them marked, something so that we can make that road safer for everybody to drive on. For all the public, we drive these roads every day. We know where the potholes are. We know where the washboard is. Where you have to drive on the wrong side of the road because there's a soft spot over here. We know all those things, but how about somebody that drives on that road that has never been on there before, and they're out there at night? It has to be safe for those people also. And that's why we need to pay attention to what those roads are like. Some of the hazards that we might have on roads, Loose gravel, anybody got loose gravel on the roads? Or are you just glad to have gravel on the road? You know, and there again, if you have loose gravel, you're gonna end up with washboard. And that's just part of a gravel road. But the other thing is when they do the road maintenance, they have to get rid of the washboard. How many people have windrows on their roads? Lots of people with windrows. Gravel cheap. Why would you buy gravel and leave it piled on the side of the road where you're not using it? If you've got gravel on your roads, get it on the road. You don't want a windrow on the side of the road because all of that does, first off, it won't let the road drain because the water hits that, it can't go nowhere. You know, get rid of the windrows, use that gravel, have it on the road and use that gravel. And when I know a lot of times a motor grader operator is going to tell you, well, that's a maintenance windrow. They blade it this way, then they blade it this way. And if they're doing that, the only thing they're doing is taking those rocks and filling the holes with loose gravel. And in a day or two, the holes are back and they're not getting anything accomplished other than rolling that around. If you're going to blade the roads, you got to get down, get rid of the holes, get rid of the washboard and lay that gravel back out again. Is it going to cost more each time you blade the road? Probably will. But if they're going to make 3 or 4 passes on it rather than 2, at least you're going to get your road improved. Rocks. If you got windrows and they pull up a rock when they're blading the road, it's going to end up in that windrow. And you can have 6 miles of road with a windrow on it going through your township, and you're going to have 1 rock in that windrow. And if anybody ever crosses that windrow, it's going to be right where that rock is at. They're going to hit it. If there's one out there, somebody's going to hit it. Washouts, you know, there again, we have to do road inspections to watch for things like that. Trees in the right of way. There's a lot of trees in the right of way, and we can't go get rid of them all at one time. It can't happen. But sometimes you need to start working on them a little bit at a time, and eventually they'll go away. And the other thing with the trees, no tree starts out this big. They all start out this big. And when they are that big, make sure they get mowed down so that they don't get to be a big tree. When they're little trees, the mower will take them off. You don't have to worry about them. So don't let them grow up. Road inspections are very important. Every township should have a road supervisor. And how many in here have a road supervisor? You know, and that road supervisor is the one that's going to be driving the roads and looking for hazards. And so they're going to know what's on that road. And when you do that, pay attention to the road, not just, let's see if I can run all these roads today and not be paying attention to anything. You have to be watching for what's going on out there. And the other thing is don't go out there alone. And I'll talk more about that in the next slide too. But don't go out there alone. Think safety whenever you're doing any of these things. You know, if you got a beacon you can put up on your vehicle so people can see you because you're going to be stopped on the road, getting in and out, doing things like that. Do that. Do whatever you can to make it as safe as possible for you. But now, like I say, you don't want to go out there alone. So now you're the road supervisor. And now you're going to get another township supervisor to go with you, right? So what do you have? An illegal meeting. So when Tom comes, he talks about your meeting notices and things like that. And one of the things he recommends is that you put in a notice with the auditor the beginning of the year that you pick a day, say the second Tuesday of the month. You're gonna do a township meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning, the second Tuesday of every month. You have that published. And now if you're gonna go out and do a road inspection, that's when you wanna go do it, because you meet at 9 o'clock and at your designated area, and then you can go from there. So if anybody sees you, it's like, yes, we're having a meeting. And we started it here, and this is what we're doing. And so you're not gonna have that illegal meeting. And at the same time, you're out checking your roads, you know, do your traffic sign inspections at the same time. And you know, when with the traffic sign inspections and with the road inspection stuff, know what you're looking for. And like I say, pay attention to the roads. Here we've got a hole in the road. Just a little bit of a hole here. It was about this big. I'm driving down the road and I seen this. And it's like, okay, what caused that to start? What's happening underneath? And that's where you got to stop and get out. You got to check things out. Because obviously something's washed away underneath if you have a surface here that's starting to drop through. You know, maybe you have a rod with you, pound a rod into the road, and is it hollow underneath, you know, to where you got a washout under there that just hasn't fallen through yet. And if you have something, these things need to be marked. Make sure that people aren't driving over something like this. Here we've got an area where there's been a major water event gone on here. Because you can see where all the gravel is washed across the road and it's washed off into the ditch. And there's a hole right here also. That area, you know that there's been water over the road, so who knows what went on underneath. But when you see that hole, now we got to get down into over the edge of the road. It's washed out. You can tell it's washed out on the shoulder back to here. You got to get down and look in it and find out what's there. When you're doing that, and you got water here, you got washout along here, you got slippery on the edges, what happens if you fall in? That's where you don't want to be alone. That's where you got to have two people. Because if you fall into here, you may not be able to get out on your own. And you're going to need help. So, like I say, you have to think safety whenever you do any of this. And the big thing is safety, not just for the public, but for yourself. Here we've got a washout. The road's washed out here, culvert right here. And the reason that this washed out like it did is right here is a sleeve that holds two pieces of culvert together. And with a lot of water running through there, that sleeve was leaking. And it washed away everything underneath that roadway. There again, this was probably hung up with just the gravel a little bit until something went over it or something. Maybe they were lucky enough where nobody fell in there. But if somebody comes along here at night and there's no markings, there's going to be a wreck. Last fall, I was out driving, looking at roads, and I came across this. Got markings on both sides of the road here, the cones and the little reflectors there, and a Suburban sitting in the middle of the road. So I drive up there, I get out, I'm going to go talk to whoever's out there doing this. And I get out there and there's nobody there. And what happened is that they wanted to close that road. This is on the shoulder, is what the shoulder of the road looks like over here. So obviously there's some washout going back in under the road. And they didn't have signing to close that road. So they put this stuff on the edges. They leave that Suburban parked in the middle so nobody can drive through. And then they go probably went to the county and got barricades and road closed signs to bring out and put in there. It's a temporary closure, but it works. And sometimes that's all you can do is something that works. It's daylight, everybody's gonna see it. So it's not where it's gonna be a big issue. But you do need to get the proper signing out there, so that you can get it closed correctly. Here's unauthorized ditch cleaning. This road, I stood in the ditch here and I took a picture. This is looking north. This one is looking south. So this is the top of the road here looking south. This is the top of the road looking north. They took a track hoe and dug out the bottom of that ditch. Put the spoil pile up here on top and they left it. Never had permission to be in the ditch, doing any work in there. And people can do this, you can allow them to do that, but don't allow them to change the slope of the ditch. If you're gonna do this, you take this ditch slope here and you want it to continue the same all the way over to wherever, however deep you're gonna go. What they did here is that they came in with that track hoe, they dug about 30 inches deep and the whole length, and it's just straight up and down. And that's, you can't let them do that. And I know people say, well, we didn't know they did it. Well, come on, it's on your road. It's your neighbor that's doing it. You got a pretty good idea things are going on. Don't let them do things like that. And I know that that's straight up and down because like I said, I got down in there to take the pictures and to get out of there, I had to grab and hang on to the weeds and the grass to get myself pulled up out of there because there's no way you could walk up that ditch. Now this is a bully. This grain bin here is an old bin that had been blown over in the wind, so it's not usable anymore. The farmer here, he got that bin, he set it right there next to the road. There's a camper right in there, old one. There's a bunch of hay bales around there. There ended up being 2 semi-trailers in there, the enclosed trailers. Everything parked right beside the road. Then there was a whole line of hay bales along here at one time. And he did that for one reason. It's on the west side of the road. So what's going to happen when it snows and blows? This road is going to get plugged. And this is a driveway over here going into a yard. And this is going to cause that snow drift right in the driveway so that those people can't get out. That's the reason he put it there. And what happened here, we ended up getting it moved. The woman that lives here, she was a township supervisor, trying to get him to get it moved. And so she went and hired a surveyor on her own, come out and surveyed where the section line was and 33 feet on either side and had it staked out. And then he finally moved this stuff just to the edge of that 33 feet. But the worst part of all of this is that this guy and this woman are related. So that makes for an interesting Thanksgiving dinner, huh? But there again, like I said, that's bullying. That I'm just going to do this because I can do it. And people like that, you have to show them and enforce that they can't do that. If they're doing something like that in your right of way, they have to get it moved. And because if you let them to do this, well, then the next person's going to do the same thing. Rural subdivisions or lake property, things like that. This is an east-west road here. Both pictures are at the same intersection. This is looking east, this one's looking west. So this road is the same as this. When that subdivision got put in there quite a few years ago, this wasn't an issue. Guy here, he planted this little evergreen tree out there in his yard and nothing was ever an issue. Very little traffic on this road because it went to nowhere. But then over time, it got to be a little traffic because people were living down there. And then a developer came in that owned all the land out here and put in a new subdivision. Now they got lots of traffic. Traffic moves faster than what it's supposed to. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. And they run 45 miles an hour on there. But you can't see that road from this intersection. And I worked with them on this. And what they did is they trimmed off all the branches on the bottom of this tree. And these shrubs in here got trimmed back. And the grass got mowed. And so you can see anything coming from the west here. This evergreen tree here, that's still a problem. And the guy's not going to take his tree out. But what they need to do is maybe get them to trim it up 4 or 5 feet on the bottom so that at least you can see underneath it. You can see if there's any traffic coming. And part of this is that it's in a subdivision. Who knows what the easements are there? It's not where you got 66 feet because they're not section lines. Whatever the easement was when it was plotted is what you've got. And maybe all you have is just the road itself. And I don't know that. So you may not have anything that you can do about some of these things, but you got to talk to people, let them know what their responsibilities are and their liabilities. Here's a road. I was driving down the highway last fall and I see a gravel road going up through a cornfield. And so I turn around and I go back because that's what I do. And drive up this road and turn around. And all you see is corn on both sides. You can't see the highway. So I get a little closer to the highway. Now you can see the highway is there. You can start to see the top of a yield sign down here. And here you can see the yield sign, but you can see the road, but you can't see anything coming either side of it, either direction on that highway. And so I took a picture looking south, and I'm sitting in my pickup when I took all my pictures. This is looking south at the road. That's all you can see is the corn. Looking north, all you can see out here is corn, and you can see the yield sign and you can see the intersection, but nothing beyond that intersection. And we all know you're not supposed to be farming that 33 feet on each side of the section line, but we also know everybody does, or a lot of people do. And yes, you could cut this for that whole mile, 33 feet out on both sides, but you're not going to do that either. But what you should do is talk to the farmer here. And could you mow your corn or not plant corn in that corner, maybe back 100 feet from the road or something like that, 150 feet, so that there's some space there where you can have some visibility of that highway as you're coming up to that intersection. And then we got traffic signs a little bit. Most people probably or should have a traffic sign program in place because we've only been talking about them for 25 years. But when you look at traffic signs, think about how many signs do you really have? Because everybody thinks it's a big overwhelming thing to do a signing program. But how many signs do you have on your township roads that are township signs? Because if you have a yield or a stop sign facing your township road that intersects with a county road or a state road, That's a county or state sign. That's not your sign. That's in their right of way. It's their sign. Now, if there's a hill that blocks that sign and you put a stop ahead sign back here on your road, then that stop ahead sign would be your sign. But the stop sign at the intersection would be theirs. And so when you look at it that way, it's not where you have that many signs probably. You might have some curve signs, dead end signs, things like that. And here, we've got no yield sign here. There's a yield sign over here. And this is a township road that intersects with a county road. And I had complaints about the yield sign being missing. There's no yield sign there. Hasn't been for years. We've called the county and this was from the township and they say that it's our sign and they're not going to fix it. So I went out there and looked at it. And then I went and talked to the county because the yield signs here are their signs. They're not a township sign because they're in that county right away. So I went and talked to the county again and told them, I said, this is your sign. You need to get that fixed. And they said, well, I said, we're not going to fix it. And if anybody, if there's a wreck or anything there, we'll just say that we didn't know that the sign was down and it must have just got knocked down and stuff like that. Well, right in here is that sign, that yield sign. It's got grass growing on top of it. It's been run over. It's been mowed over. I don't know how many years it's been laying there. But you're not going to make anybody believe that you didn't know that sign was down. Things like that need to be fixed. And like I say, it's not a township issue there. It's a county issue. This is also a yield sign on a county that's on a, you see it from the township road, but it intersects with a county road. So it's a county sign. It's been a long time since that thing should have been replaced and it still hasn't been. And like I say, it's a county sign, but as a township, you need to notify the county that that needs to be replaced because they drive by on their county road, they see the backside of the sign. Now, if they would be doing a traffic sign inventory like they're supposed to and checking their signs every year, they would know about this, but obviously they haven't been. But as the township, make sure you let them know that this sign needs to be replaced and that way they can get out and do that. Here we've got a sign, tells you that there might be water on the roadway. And, well, first off, there is no roadway there anymore. This is an orange and black sign, which is a construction sign. So it shouldn't be there anyway. And it's not a road anymore. Yes, it's still a section line, but it's not a road. Don't tell people that this is a road. Somebody hazed this part of it. Who knows how long that's been washed out or dug out or whatever, because look at the size of the trees growing where the road would be over here. You know, don't tell people that it's a road when it's not. This is a township road that the township, it went underwater. They didn't have the money to hire a contractor to come in and fix it. So the township supervisors, they got their equipment together. One of them had a gravelly clay pit in his field. It packs hard, doesn't wash. So they hauled that and they fixed their road. They brought it back up out of the water. He didn't charge them for anything. They did the work themselves. They got the road built back up. They got rocks and they did the riprap here. Then they gravelled the road. And as you can see now, though, it's a narrow road, but at least they got it out of the water so you can drive. And then they called me to come out and look at it. And then what should we do for signing? What I told them is, you know, you're going to have to put a soft shoulder sign on there because the shoulders are soft. And then I told them to put a one-way traffic sign on each end. And a one-way traffic should let people know that if there's somebody coming on that road, you're gonna have to stop and wait for them to get through and then you can go through. With a car or a pickup, you can meet on there. It's narrow, but you can meet. But if there's a loaded truck coming, you got a semi coming there loaded with wheat or with whatever, they can't move off of that center of the road. If they get out here onto the shoulder, that truck's gonna go off into the ditch, and now you've also ruined your road. So I told them to use that one-way traffic sign, and hopefully that would get people to realize what's going on there. But also, you have to educate your farmers that live there also. You can't come out here in the spring of the year with your new four-wheel drive with triples on it, with a 70-foot air seeder hanging behind you, and think that you're gonna drive down this road. Because it's not wide enough. You're gonna be out here on the shoulders, the road's gonna give way on you, and now you're gonna have nothing. Those type of things still need to drive around on the same roads that you would drive on if this wasn't here. Because if you try to use it for that, this won't be here. And then mailbox standards, we had some issues with mailboxes this last few years. So I put these on here again. And the mailbox itself needs to be a postmaster approved mailbox, and the post needs to be a breakaway type post, 41 to 45 inches from the surface of the road to the bottom of the box, and then set back 6 to 8 inches from the edge of the road to the front of the box. And the big thing there is that breakaway post. We had some issues for the last few years with this mailbox. A guy come out here and got a tractor tire here, big tractor tire. And I thought this was a railroad tie. I found out last night that it's a highline pole. And he concreted it into there. Filled this tire with concrete. And then he built his contraption here to hold the mailboxes. And I just found my picture of this before he built any of this, just the post and the tire and concrete was in 2020. The first time he was told that he couldn't do that by the township. Well, then he went and he built this on there, and they've been fighting with him ever since. Earlier last year, the guy with the black mailbox on the other side of this, and he went and put up a new post, put his box on there. And the guy that owned this one, he wouldn't move it. Not gonna do it, not gonna do it. He wouldn't accept the certified letters that they were sending him and that were telling him to move it. He wouldn't accept them. And last fall at their county township meeting, I was there and I was talking to the township chairman of the township board. I was talking to him and he said, you know, he didn't know what to do because the guy's going to sue him. You know, he's going to have him put in jail and prison because it's a federal offense to monkey with somebody's mailbox, and he's going to do all of this stuff. And I said, well, you got to just get him the letter and you give him the time period to do something about it, or you do it yourself. And then you can bill him for it if you want. And the sheriff was standing there. He says, if you want me to take a letter out there, I'll take the letter. So he took him the letter, and whatever the time was, they came out, took the mailbox. They had the county come out and put up the post for them because they make their own mailbox posts out of Telspar. So they're a breakaway. They put the post up, they moved the mailbox, and the township supervisor took his payloader, hauled this out of there, hauled it down to the guy's farmyard, dumped it off in his yard, and they've had no issues since. The only message that I got back from the owner of this was, thank you, the township seemed to be very generous. And nobody got sued, nobody got anything like that. So, and that's what a bully does though. It goes back to the bully. They threaten, You know, if you, don't send me anything else. If you're gonna do any comments, you talk to my attorney and all of this kind of stuff, because we're gonna sue. And if they want to threaten to sue you, that's fine. Tell them, fine, go ahead, sue me. Because with this in the right of way, you're gonna win. And that's what the insurance reserve fund is for. You have your insurance with them. If you get sued, you get served the papers, you turn it over to them, and they'll take care of it. Anybody have any questions? And I'll be around here. Yes, sir. Yep. You are not responsible to build a road. Nope. It's a section line. Open to public. If there's a hazard out there that you know of, a washout, something like that, you have an obligation to fill that or to fix it. Or a notice as to what it is, what the problem is, but you have no obligation to build a road. Somebody goes out and buys 40 acres of land out in the middle of a pasture somewhere on a section, next to a section line, and they build themselves a new house and then come to you and tell you that you need to build them a road out to their new house. No, you don't. You have no obligation to build a road. They can build a road if they want to on that section line, but if they're going to do that, then it has to be built to your specifications, because once that road is completed and they've paid for it, it now becomes your road. And you're responsible to maintain it. But the building of it, you are not obligated to build anything. It's a prairie road. Yeah. You're not getting gas tax on it. And now if it's a minimum, if you do maintain it, then it becomes a minimum maintenance road maybe. And then you'll be getting gas tax for it. Yeah, then you're gonna want to do some improvements. But a prairie road isn't a recognized road. And Tom talks about that in his presentation later. And so it might be something to bring up with him too. Yep. Anything else? All right, like I say, I'll be around here, and when Tom's up here, he can field a lot of questions also. So have a great rest of your day and drive safe on your way home later today.
Thank you, Mark. We had found out last year that Mark was going to retire on us from the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, and we weren't quite sure where that was going to put North Dakota Township Association. Mark has traveled with us for many, many years. He's brought us a lot of good information for township officers and safety issues on roads, and so we did approach Mark, and we had asked him if he would be willing to travel with us and continue with his safety education as he has in the past, and he agreed to. So we are very fortunate that Mark was willing to come along with us. He brings us a lot of good information for township officers. Our next speaker will be Denise Brown from North Dakota LTAP.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I usually get the privilege of coming to Fessenden, so great to see you all here. I get to talk about something fun, better than road safety. We're going to talk about grant opportunities and things that you need to know when you're applying for grants and flex funding that's available. So with this, there may be a lot of questions as we go, but there's a lot of resources to reach out to. But first of all, I want to thank the Township Officers Association they give us a amount of funding to go out to the townships and do trainings. So thank you for that. And I just want to remind townships that if you need training, let's say motor grader training, if you have a township meeting, you want to talk about gravel roads, you want to talk about safety, signs, let us know. We can come out for free, or you can attend our training for free. There's no fees. If it says $50, it's waived for you. So just keep an eye on our training, but thank you again. So grant opportunities. North Dakota DOT website. It's an amazing website. It will give you all the grant information on the funding, and it shows what's available right now. And I know that through my own experience, I went out to DOT recently, and they have done some huge improvements. Before, you had to kind of dig around to find funding. Now it's right up front. So definitely take a look at that. And Brandon at DOT, with local government, you can reach out to him. Brian Fuchs used to be the person to contact with North Dakota DOT, but he's now our director with LTAP. So there is a change there. So if you think of Brian Fuchs, he's right now with us with LTAP. So they have Brandon in charge of that. So the grant funding, grant and funding programs, you can see there's state grants, there's state funding programs and federal grants. So when you're applying for these grants, make sure that you know the entity that you're asking the money from. So because they differ, a lot of, and I'll go into that a little bit more here, but some of them will ask for a 20% match, and that's what you'll need to meet. So make sure that you read clearly what the grant is offering and what you need to follow up with. So again, Brandon's going to be a great source for you. That's his main job, is he works with the townships and the counties with funding that's available from the state. So reach out to them. So flex funding, who's heard of the flex funding? Everybody should raise their hand. That's money that was set aside by the state and available to you as townships. So a little bit about that. The first round applicants were due at the end of 2023, but likely North Dakota DOT is going to solicit in 2025 again. 259 applications were received from that round. So great to you townships who did apply for money. As it was said before, there's been money distributed to the townships and counties. Total project cost was $675 million, and 432 was requested. So there was still plenty of money left over, so that's why they're going to be soliciting once again. So 113 of the 253 previous, that's TAP, that's the Township Assistance Program. You guys hear of that one? You've used that one before. It's been moved to the flex funding. So that tab no longer exists. It all went into the flex funding. So here's the distribution for the counties for the townships. So the counties need to work with the townships in order to get their flex funding. Tribal nation, there's just a one entity that did, the city, and then the counties themselves had a large portion, but the major amount of it went to the townships that worked with their counties to get their funding. So the application distribution, this is kind of really hard to see from back there, but the colored one, the teal colored one, is the sum of flex funding requested. So that's what the townships put in or the counties put in that they needed. The gray is the sum of total project cost. So what they put in and what the cost was a bit differing. So if you look at the numbers there, the county for township, and then the county alone, and then the city. So this one again is hard to see, but the flex funding all applications throughout the state. So here are the flexible transportation fund road and bridge applications were received. So you have to keep in mind here that it was oil producing counties, non-oil producing counties, cities, and tribal as well. So a lot of applications were put in for that flex funding, and you can see there's really not a pattern to it, but there was a lot in the central part of the state. Flex funding, it's set aside allocation 25% for the non-producing, non-oil producing counties and townships, 171 applications. The total project cost is 288 million. The flex funds that are requested is 205. So there's some big projects out there. 43 million is available for set aside allocation. A committee will decide where the funds will go. So they do have a committee set up who's going to look at these applications, look at them closely. Are they right on with money? Because you guys probably don't know all of the charges that are involved in construction or work. So it's great to have this committee to take a look at it. And here are the counties for townships again, the flex funding that's set aside, and then the county, 83 applicants. So the flex funding set aside allocation, again, there's 43 million. The county for township, you can see in the teal, and also the county 183. These are really hard to see, so I'm going to kind of skip through them. So the flex funding, the partner allocation, it goes to the cities, tribes, oil producing counties, and townships. There's 88 applicants at this time. The total project funds is 387 million. The flex funds requested is 226 million. So we got money moving, right? So I'm going to kind of go through these because the amount of funding that's available for the partner allocation, it will be at the discretion of DOT. So that's different than the other funding, the other flex funding, because there's a committee. This one with the partner allocation, DOT decides how much of the funding will be distributed. The flex funding is a committee of 9. And though the committee there is North Dakota Association of Counties, North Dakota Township Association, North Dakota League of Cities, the North Dakota Chamber of Commerce, North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission, and 2 at large. So, and then 2 DOT members. So you have a great committee that is made up of the diversity of the state. So, and then, again, DOT will select the partner projects. So what do you need to know when you start this process? You have to realize that there's laws that are associated with this. So make sure that you look at the agency that's providing the money. So take a look at it, do your homework, do a lot of reading, because there's lots of requirements. And if the requirements aren't met, it'll get rejected. Agency offering the grant, again, is it federal or state funding? Because each one is different. And then the project type, you want to be very specific to what your project is. Is it a overlay that you're doing, a bridge repair, some sort of structural issue? Are you just laying gravel? There is a need for gravel out there, right? Everybody knows that gravel roads need more gravel, more maintenance. So you as township officers, like Mark said, do an inventory of your road. If you have a spot that's been a problem for 50 years, this money is there now. Take a look at it and try and get your money out on that road. What work activities are eligible? So make sure that if you as township people are doing the work, that you make that very clear. The problem that you might have is that if you're putting money forward and you're not getting the money until later, know that it's a reimbursement then. So if they're, depending on what your situation is, if you're able to put that money up front, or if you can get it right away. Make sure the deadline, that you meet that deadline, very particular about that. It has to meet the date. Who is even eligible to apply? Make sure that the townships that you are eligible to apply. So take a look at that line. That's part of the grant process as well. Do you have to partner with another agency? Most of the time, the answer is going to be yes with flex funding, because you have to work through your county, likely your county auditor, maybe you have an emergency manager that you have to work with, and also county commissioners. Is there a minimum or maximum award I can receive? There's always a minimum or a maximum. So take a look at that. Think about your project. Is it going to apply to all of the project, or are you going to have to wait another year to finish that project? Is there cost share? That used to be a very popular thing, especially with federal highway, and still federal highway has that 20% match. Sometimes it's 10% depending on the grant. So make sure you take a look at that, because you have to be able to afford that. Do you have to hire an engineer for this job? Probably. Very likely, if you have an engineer in the county, that would be great. Who does the county use for engineers? Make sure you're familiar with that agency, because likely you'll need an engineer to take a look at it. Make sure that you have the right depth on the road, making sure your culvert is in place the right way. So keep in mind the engineer costs that are associated. Grant requirements and other stuff. This is, again, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is the environmental issue. You can't just go digging anywhere and think it's okay. You'll need permits likely for going in that area. So definitely an environmental document may be required. So take a look at that. Wetland mitigation, is that needed for the area? Depending on the project, how much are you doing in that area? Do I have to bid the project, or can I do the work myself? So keep that in mind when you're writing in the project grant, how much money is gonna be required. But remember that money is available for you, so don't think you have to do the work, and maybe spring planting is coming up and all of a sudden you don't have the time to do the work. Keep that in mind right away, and get those contractors that are available. They're available to do this work, and if you have the grant, the money, you should use them instead of thinking you have to do it yourself, because I know probably the majority of the people in this room are farmer ranchers, so don't put that obligation on yourself. When would I have time? When would I have to have the project completed? If the awarded grant, when are you gonna put in that you're gonna be done with that project? So again, don't, short yourself the time, because when you're doing this project, you're getting money, you're getting funds that you never had before, right? So you want to do a great job out there, and don't think all of a sudden that you're a construction person. There's a lot of work, a lot of detail that goes into the projects. So when you're figuring out your project costs, think about material that you're gonna use. Are you gonna have to add more gravel? How much is the cost for gravel? Your culvert, if you're gonna have to replace your culvert, get numbers and bids on that, the labor and any type of equipment that's being used. We all know through farming, equipment is not cheap to use. You gotta figure your fuel costs as well. Are you able to construct the project, or is the contractor required? Touched on that already. Do you account for inflation? So maybe you have this project, but you can't get to it till 2025. So make sure that you're thinking about inflation. We all know what that's about, right? The past couple of years, it's been way different in the farming and the construction industry. Figure in that inflation. Do you need right of way or easements? You need to work with your county with that, also your supervisor in the townships. Do you need to move utilities? Make sure that you're in contact with the utility companies when you're doing that. Anytime you dig anything at all, 811 is the number to call. And so don't start digging without calling. Traffic control costs, Mark talked about that. If you're gonna have to close off a road, make sure that you know that you're gonna need a barricade. Or maybe you just need cones for short term, depending on the term of the project. If it's a long-term one, you need to put out barricades. You can't have people coming across. So I don't know if the county pays for them and lets you use them. That's a great relationship, great partnership, but maybe it's good for the township to invest in as well. The key point is just to keep everybody safe on that road. So, again, we go through the contractors, and the project type dictates the bid items required to complete a project. So make sure, like the graveling projects versus a grade raise, gravel road versus culvert replacement. So making sure that you know the costs of that before you start anything. So putting this in the grant application is a huge part, and make sure that you have accurate quantities of what you might need. So remember, the estimate should be as accurate as possible and include all associated costs and list them. List them. If you have to do a separate sheet and attachment, that's great. This takes away from any concerns from the grant reviewer on whether or not the project can be completed. So if there's a question over the project and the estimates that you're putting in, things are not matching, the grant reviewer will say, I don't think this township is on board like they should be. So making sure you check it over well. And again, working with your county is your partner. A low estimate does not guarantee an award of funds. It only raises questions and concerns. So don't underestimate things. On visibility of the project, as your project may not meet grant requirements, if you can't complete the scope of the project because you ran out of funds. So that again is a reminder that go heavy on that, because, and again, inflation is a huge part of that. So where can you go? You can talk to other townships, right? We're right in this room right now. Take time to talk to each other. And even in a different county, what's Sheridan County doing? What's Kidder County doing? Talk to those people, reach out. Talk to the county. You know your county people, you turn in your paperwork every year to them. Sit down and have a conversation that you're gonna apply for these grants and what kind of help are they gonna provide you. Consultants, you can reach out to them. There's KLJ, there's many different engineer consultants. Of course, there's a cost with that, but it may not be as much as you think. So definitely never rule them out. Agency offering the grants. So if it's DOT, if it's federal highway, whoever it is, make sure you reach out to them as well. If you're confused on a question, they're going to help you. Associations like the local, state, and national, there's a lot of people to tap into there. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I gave you all the information on those grants, and I don't have a lot of answers for you because I have not seen the grants myself. And that's something I need to do, is take a look at the grants so I can talk the talk, right, and walk the walk. So if you have questions, your best place to go is Brandon with DOT. But now I'm going to switch gears to upcoming North Dakota LTAP training. I've been with LTAP for almost 18 years. I'm the program manager there. So when you see courses come up, this is what I've done. I put the courses together. I put the content together, not all of it because I'm not an engineer, but we reach out to engineers. They help us put the training together, and then we put it out on our website. Our website is very informational, as you'll see, paving the road forward. We have an asphalt conference coming up in April. It's April 2nd and 3rd. It's open for everybody. If you guys have pavement in your township and you know nothing about pavement, come to the conference. It's not going to cost you anything. It's $50, but for township people, it's free. Same with any of the training. One good one that's coming up is work zone safety for short-term projects. That's a great training. It'll tell you exactly what you need to put on the roadway and why. Also in the back, when you came in, we had a survey that we handed out. UGPTI, who's my parent company, my parent organization, and above that is NDSU. But UGPTI, Upper Great Plains Transportation Institute, I know Robin and Jerry know us well. They received a federal grant recently, and Kim Bockel is in charge of it. And the first step is getting this survey filled out. So once they receive the survey from the townships, counties, cities, tribal people, they're going to put together a plan. And the plan is to make the unpaved roads safer. So we've been talking about that. I know we've been, as LTAP, that is always our focus. But now they receive some money. So how are we going to go about making these roads safer? So Kim is going to put together this great information that you're going to provide on the survey and move forward with that. So in the future, you'll hear the results of these surveys, and the whole bottom line is making those roads safer. So with that, do you have any questions? Sorry, I gave you a lot of information in a short amount of time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. An item I'd like to mention here on these grants, there is a requirement now for these flex funding grants that your township is at 18 mil. If you'll remember the other two grant programs that we had prior to the flex funding, you did not have to be at the 18 mil. However, when the legislators met and talked about the bill that now the funding is in, there was question about how townships are taking care of themselves. And it came to a point that they realize, they know that what a township is levying, every township, and the dollars they're bringing in. And there are some townships out there that aren't levying enough. Their levy is so low that they're not able to take care of themselves. And so this program is designed so that it's designed for larger projects. It's not designed for any type of just maintenance, basic maintenance. It's geared towards your larger projects. And that was the way that that they decided that this grant program was going to be made with the requirement at the 18 mil for the fact that they feel that you should be at that point anyway, so that you're taking care of yourselves, your own maintenance type requirements, and after that, then you would be eligible to apply for the grants. And don't get frustrated on these grants. This is still a new process. Like I say, this is only the third grant program that's available to townships. And not everyone is going to get a grant. We know that. And but it's just that this is a system that they are trying to work towards, that now that the larger projects are going to be funded this direction, rather than trying to get some of just the one-time payments out. So I think it's just something we have to get used to, and we have to be patient and do the paperwork to apply for these grants. So thank you, Denise. Our next speaker will be Mr. Larry Syverson.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to go over the changes in the 2024 edition of the Township Officers Handbook. First of all, I would like to recognize a couple of gentlemen in the audience, Representative Robin Wise and Senator Jerry Klein, two of the best friends townships have ever had. Oh, John Nelson's here too. Hello, John. Two of the best friends townships have ever had. In fact, Representative Wise and Senator Klein have both been recognized as the Township Officers Legislator of the Year. In fact, Representative Wise received that recognition twice. So thanks a lot for all the help you've been out there. We appreciate it. Page 1 in your handbook is not a change. It is to thank you to the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. Again, they paid for the printing of this update. It's a big printing project, and it results in a huge printing bill. And we're very grateful that the Insurance Reserve Fund pays it so we don't have to. The North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund is not a state agency. It does not receive any funding from the state. It operates on the premiums paid by the policyholders. The North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund was started by the government subdivisions because the commercial insurance companies quit offering liability coverage for local governments. Without the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, townships probably could not get liability insurance. Anything available would be very costly. Now, the first change in our book is on page 5. We have a new District 3 director, Rod Meyer of Niagara in Nelson County. The NDTOA Board of Directors has hired a consultant to review the association and ensure that we are structured to do what is needed to move forward to serve you better. The recommendations which the board has adopted include the mission and vision statement added on page 27 and the strategic plan on page 28. On page 31, Article 8 of the NDTOA bylaws. At the December annual meeting, the membership approved 2 bylaws changes. The first, for Article 8, increased the annual membership fee to $200 to fund the increased activity of the association. The effort to gain more funding and to protect what we have for townships is a high-stakes game. To do more and to be more costs more. The second change in Article 11 changes my title from Executive Secretary to Executive Director. On page 33, Article 4 of the NDTOA policy added item 11, which concerns director travel, reimbursement for travel to township and county meetings within their district. Article 5 of the policy continues the title change from Executive Secretary to Executive Director. Page 35, Article 18 of the NDTOA changes the makeup of the executive committee, replacing the treasurer with an additional director. And Article 20 of the NDTOA policy adds items 3 and 4 to the activities of the NATAD director, which are to bring NDTOA policies to the national board, and then to report back on national activities to the NDTOA board of directors and to you, the membership. Changes to the North Dakota Century Code. The 68th legislative session passed bills that affected 2,235 sections of the Century Code. They added some, they amended some, and they repealed some. First additions in the book are on page 37. And they concern the Ag Commissioner's Office. The first item on the page is Livestock Development and Planning Program grants. These are grants for townships and counties that are seeking to write more livestock-friendly zoning ordinances. The second item is Ag Infrastructure Grant Program. That's grants for improving the infrastructure for ag projects such as soybean crushing plants, large feeding operations, whatever. If a bridge needs to be repaired or a road access to the highway needs to be improved, the Ag Department has grants for that. The last item on the page is the Model Zoning Review Task Force. President Brandvold and I serve on that task force, working with the Ag Commissioner's Office and other stakeholders to write a new model zoning ordinance for the state. Page 38, the first item there is the Infrastructure Grant Program appropriation. That's the money for those ag value added project grants. Page 39, remove the requirement that weed complaints had to be signed before the Ag Commissioner could forward the complaints to the proper weed control authorities. Page 53, changes for county zoning of feedlots. 11-33-02.1, subsection 8C. It's the loss of the ability to increase setbacks above state values. Previously, a county could increase the setback requirements for a feedlot operation 50% over the state values. Now they can no longer do that. 11-33-02.19, subsection 9C, total fees required for a permit are now limited to $500. And the last one, 11-33-02.1, subsection 10, if a feedlot ordinance is challenged in court, the prevailing party is entitled to legal costs. So if a feedlot developer feels that the county zoning ordinance is too burdensome and they take it to court and win, the county would have to pay their legal costs. And vice versa, if the county won, the developer would have to pay their costs. Page 77, 21-05-04. This is the bidding exception for emergency road and bridge repair. If a road is damaged by flood or other casualties, the county may promptly contract for the repair without advertising for bids, no matter what the cost. This will greatly speed up repairs of flood damage if they don't have to wait for that long bidding process. That is a county. It's not too common that townships repair bridges. That's almost all bridges are county property. Any more questions? Page 87. 24-08-01, remove the petition requirement for county bridge building, another time-saving change. 24-08-03, raises the bidding threshold to $200,000 for bridge repair and adds a damage clause. The previous bidding threshold was $30,000, and you can't hardly do anything to a bridge for $30,000, so that bidding threshold got increased. And there again, if they're repairing damage from a flood or other disaster, they can do it without going through the bidding process, again, to speed up the repairs. Page 147, 57-02-08.1, changes to the homestead credit. The maximum allowed income level was increased from $42,000 to $70,000. And the maximum reduction of the homeowner's taxable value was modified from $5,625 to $9,000. So again, the state is now providing some substantial help to those least able to pay the taxes on their homes. Page 151 added the primary residence credit. The state tax department has been sending out these little flyers that give the details. A North Dakota homeowner may receive up to a $500 tax credit reflected on the next year's property tax statement. There is no age or income restrictions. The property must be the resident's primary home, and the deadline for that application is March 31st of this year. Page 157, 57-02-51, date of equalization meetings to be published by the auditor. When the law was changed a couple years ago to allow all townships to hold equalization meetings any day in April, it did not agree with the law requiring the county auditor to publish a notice for the meetings. This amendment resolves that conflict. On page 158, 57-02-53, subsection 2. The notice of increase is to include a statement that assessment increases may mean taxes will increase. The notice of increase is sent out by the assessor when the value has increased by more than $3,000 and 10% over the previous year. Page 166, 57-15-01. Taxing districts must communicate the amount levied in dollars rather than in mills, because the legislature thinks talking about mills clouds the issue of just how much money is getting spent. Page 168, 57-15-19.2. Township Special Road Fund limit has been increased to $500,000. This is the result of one of our efforts in this last session to help those, especially out in the oil field, to be able to build up fund to do their road work. The Special Road Fund allows the township to continue levying taxes while building up a fund for a large project. This is part of the process in which township voters determine the priority for the budget and the resulting levy. Township voters can increase or decrease the levy based on local needs. Township voters can even impose an unlimited levy upon their own property if they deem it necessary to respond to an emergency. That is local control. That is not something you get from the county or from some office in Bismarck. Now on page 179, changes for township zoning of feedlots. These are the same changes as the county got. The loss of the ability to increase setbacks. Total fees required are limited to $500. And again, if a feedlot ordinance is challenged in court, the prevailing party is entitled to legal costs. Here's another one of our changes. Page 182, 58-04-01, Township Annual Meeting can now be any day in March. It's a little flexibility to pick a date. So now when you put your notice in the paper for your annual meeting, you could put in that in case of a storm, it'll be held a week later. And if both meetings are in March, they'll both qualify as legal township annual meetings. The importance is that if you have it outside of March, it would have to be a special meeting. And there are requirements in the law for that. You can only conduct business that is listed in the notice. So that's kind of hard to run an annual meeting that way. So that's an important distinction. Compensation of officers. This is a result of another one of our efforts. A township officer may receive as compensation for services up to $100 a day for each day necessarily devoted to the work of their office, not exceeding $4,000 in a calendar year. The electors of the township shall establish the daily compensation rate for township officers at each annual township meeting. Page 187, 58-06-02, the compensation of supervisors. Page 188, 58-07-01, compensation of clerks. Page 189, 58-08-01, compensation of treasurers. Those are now all up to $100 a day, $4,000 a year maximum. And compensation for other expenses and necessary travel is allowed. See 44-08-04 and 54-06-09. If the offices of clerk and treasurer are combined, the person holding that office is only entitled to one wage. Moving on, page 239. The new FEMA and North Dakota Department of Emergency Services Guide. This is important because FEMA is getting more and more particular about what they will or will not cover. You must follow proper procedures to have a successful application. And on page 252, it's a list of all the changes in the handbook. That list is a page and a half long. In this presentation, I just hit on some of those that are most likely to ever affect the township. The last page in the book, page 254, township meeting dates. This page has been updated for township annual meeting date to be any day in April or March, and for township equalization meetings to be held any day in April. That concludes the changes in the book. A couple other items here. The state bonding fund. State bonding fund is on page 184, the bonds of officers. The clerk, treasurer, and assessor must be bonded within 10 days of assuming office. The state bonding fund is an insurance against fund loss by officer dishonesty, and it's offered by the state and administered by the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. There is no cost to the township, but the applications have to be completed and filed with the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund to make sure your township bond is in effect. This is very important. We have learned that there is a township in the state that has suffered this loss for the second time in less than 10 years. And they suspect that this last time it has cost that township something in 6 figures. It is a township out west in oil country. For one thing, they have a 4-story hotel in that township and several paved streets and several subdivisions. There's a lot of property there. They handle a lot of money, and it seems the treasurer helped herself to a bunch of it. And so it's a clerk treasurer, and one of the things she was supposed to do was to apply for the bond. So they don't know if they were covered or not yet. So you want to make sure that your application has been sent in and that your bond is in effect. Something a little bit more pleasant here. The Grassroots Leadership Award, recognizing a township officer for outstanding services. Here we have the 2021 winner, Marvin Heller of Ward County. The 2022 winner, Gerald Sieg of Grand Forks County. And the 2023 awardee, Doug Warnicki of Cass County. Now, each of these gentlemen have served their township, their county, and their communities for decades. A devoted service, very valuable to their communities. And they, in order to be recognized, they have to be nominated. The nomination form is on NDTOA.com and will be printed in the Grassroots Report at least once a year. The Grassroots Leadership Award is for a currently serving township officer. Nominate that outstanding board member now. It is never too early, but once they are no longer on the board, it is too late. You're just evening before last, I received an email. There's a township not too far from here that has a long-serving clerk they would love to nominate, but they'll be going off the board now in March. So will not be eligible for the award in December. So too bad they weren't nominated earlier. So do it now while before it's too late. NDTOA.com. We've mentioned the website a few times. We're putting a lot of effort into making that the resource of everything townships. Any information you need is going to be on there. One thing we're going to be adding on there is a list of pointers for doing a successful grant application. There's some simple things that will increase the ranking of your application. A couple of them are get letters of support. The elevator manager or your letter carrier or somebody, anybody that will write a letter for you supporting the project you have in mind. And be ready to put some local money against the project. $1,000, $5,000. That can be what it takes to win you $80,000 or $100,000. So a small investment. So any questions? Question.
Comment about bond, treasurer, clerk. Our fire district a year ago went through the election process to increase our ability to levy taxes. Well, 5 to 13. I'm the secretary treasurer, and then the secretary code says we have to have a bond. So our insurance agency, well, we'll go through the state. No, there is no bond for that situation. It's kind of weird compared to what bond available for a township treasurer. So the fire district has to pay an additional premium just for me to have a bond. Just kind of surprising that it was that way.
Yeah, well, that's one of the quirks of law, I guess. Thank you. Any other questions?
About 3 years ago, 2 years maybe, there was a program, if there was any extremely dangerous crossings in our township, that we should take pictures, send in. Do any of the legislators that are here know of that, and what is the progress of that Now, 2 years in a row, we've had accidents on this particular railroad crossing. Now, who would we contact to check on the progress of that? Like I said, we've had pretty good accidents 2 years in a row. This past year was another one. So does any of the legislatures know of this program, and how do we find out what the progress is, what's happening to it?
Each December, we carry in the grassroots report a letter from the North Dakota DOT concerning railway crossing safety. I believe the gentleman's name is Striley. That's the head of that department. If you leave your contact information with me, I can send you a copy of that letter. And you can follow up with the DOT on that. Anything else out there? Well, hearing no more questions, thank you for being township officers.
Thank you, Larry. So just a reminder, the surveys that you picked up when you came in, could you please remember to leave them at the back of the room, and Denise will pick them up when she's leaving. So if you're able to, that'd be great. So.
Say, Lee, can I say? I just want to see our auditors here, and I see several of our county commissioners here too. And appreciate you guys coming, and Brent, the road foremen, and just thank all you guys for coming.
Thank you, Richard, for making that announcement. It's been brought to our attention that there are some unclaimed funds for townships. Now, to check on that, if you go to our website, www.ndtoa.com, and click on the latest news, you'll see that North Dakota Unclaimed property on there. And click on that and go on there and see if your township name is on there. If your township name is on there, the amount of funds that are coming to your township will be listed as well. Now, if you are one of the townships that's listed on there and you see that it's from North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, do not call the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund to claim them funds. You need to call this North Dakota unclaimed property to go ahead and collect those unheld or unclaimed funds that are available to townships. A lot of times it was something that if you by chance changed clerks and some type of miscommunication got done with mailing or whatever. And so there are funds out there, but please check on that and get that cleaned up so that we don't have that those unclaimed funds out there on townships. Just a couple different items that I would like to recap from the 2023 annual meeting of NDTOA. Larry had mentioned it already. There was a dues increase of $75. Our old dues were $125. With the increase, that brings us up to $200 per township. Now, there's been a little bit of confusion on what that means if you have a county association as well as the state association. The $200 is only for the state. So if you have a county association, if you have a $25 or $50 county association due, you also need to add that on to the $200. So just so everyone is clear on that, so that there's no confusion on that. That would be that would be clear on that then. So just go through this, and I know this is really small, but if you've kept up with this, either if you've been at the annual meetings or if you've read our grassroots report, you know that we've talked about the dues increase for 2 years through the process that we need to follow to change our dues. We had to have a resolution 2 years ago that would bring it to a vote this prior year. This prior year was brought back in, and it was brought with the vote to raise the dues by $75. So then the reasoning for it, if you'll see here, and I know it's really small, I'm sure you guys can't read back there, but in 21 and 22, we deficit spent by $9,046. In 22 and 23, we deficit spent by $28,215. We had a projected deficit spend for this year of $37,151 if that dues increase had not gone through. So you can see that on the history of our finances, we could not continue to operate as we have been in the past with deficit spending that kind of money. So the dues increase was required. Our largest expense, of course, is our legislative expense, and we're finding that it's more difficult every session that comes along to find funding and to protect townships. And so we do put more effort in. We put more people out there. It was usually that Larry Syverson was our only person that went to the legislative session. This past session, we hired an additional person, Mr. Scott Meskey, that went in to help Larry. There were also several of the directors that were there lobbying for different bills in favor of the townships as well. So it adds a lot of expense, and of course everyone knows inflation takes everything up, and we are affected as well. So that was the reasoning for the dues increase on it. One other item that was discussed and measure resolution was passed here, the NDTOA membership adopts property tax measure resolution. North Dakota Township Officers Association Resolution 2023-1, opposition to the property tax elimination ballot measure. I'll go ahead and read the resolution. Whereas an initiated constitutional petition has been approved to be circulated to put a question on the 2024 election ballot to eliminate the ability for political subdivisions to levy property tax. And whereas the petition provides for political subdivisions to receive property tax replacement payments from state revenues, but does not specify which state revenues would be used to fill local needs. And whereas property taxes levied by townships at their respected annual meetings in 2022 totaled 32.2 million. And whereas currently the electors of a township voting at the annual meetings have the power to make decisions about the amount of property tax to levy upon themselves based on the township's locally evaluated needs. And whereas without the ability to tax themselves according to local needs, the more than 1,300 individual townships currently levying property tax would potentially need to present their budget to the legislature for approval, or worse, be subject to a one-size-fits-all appropriation every 2 years. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the North Dakota Township Officers Association opposes the property tax elimination ballot measure, and be it further resolved that the NDTOA will communicate this membership resolution to appropriate stakeholders, officials, and the NDTOA membership. This resolution was adopted by the NDTOA membership at the annual meeting on December 4th of 2023. If this measure would pass, townships would lose their current structure of funding. I'd like to just go through and remind everyone of what our current structure is and how we rely on the property taxes. North Dakota Century Code 57-15-19. This is a portion of the Century Code that allows townships to levy up to 18 mil. If 18 mil isn't enough for the funds that you need for your township, we have North Dakota Century Code 57-15-20. This gives us the opportunity as a township to expand up to 36 mills. Now, this is upon election for up to 5 years. So this one here, you do have to advertise, just like your annual meeting, you do have to advertise it 10 days prior. So you do have to make sure that you get with your auditor when you do this to make sure that your dollar numbers are exactly what they should be when you advertise it, because that has to be advertised specifically in the ad when you do expand that mill levy on this one. This does not mean that you have to go to 36 mil. You have the ability here on this one. You as a township can decide if 20 mil is fine for you, then 20 mil would be, and you would figure that out and vote on the expansion of the mill on 20 mil. But you do have the ability to go up to 36 mil under this Century Code. North Dakota Century Code 57-15-19.7. This one gives us ability to levy unlimited mills for emergency events under the declaration of a natural disaster. This one also has to be voted on at an annual meeting and has a limit for 5 years. Now, this bill came about during the disaster years. There were townships out there that did not have the funding after a huge event, water event, where roads were washed out, culverts were gone. FEMA came in, and of course there was FEMA funding. Townships were not even able to afford the local match that they needed to put up against that funding so that they were able to gain the FEMA money. So there were many projects that got left unfinished because of that. This was changed so that you do have that ability now, but it is relying on the property tax to do this for us. Those three items are what we have in place right now to draw in the funds that we need for our township and to keep our local control in our township. So we have the say of what we're going to mill, the levy that we are going to put on. You can go to www.ndtoa.com. That's our new website. It's a very good website. Larry's done an awful lot of work on that. If you go on to there, if you want to see a video about the property tax elimination measure, Rich Wardner, former Senator Rich Wardner, was out in Watford City at the McKenzie County Ag Show, and he was asked to do an interview out there about it. He was sitting at the NDTOA booth with our District 1 director, Mr. Tom Wheeler. And Senator Wardner, when he was there, he goes through the entire state budget and comes down to $19.6 billion that he breaks down and explains where that money goes to. And he also is in opposition of the property tax elimination. So you can go on there, and his PowerPoint is on there, so you can actually see the dollar numbers on it as well. So one other area you can contact us and find out information. We do update the local information that we have for NDTOA is on Facebook for those of you that are in the Facebook. So with that, when I was trying to figure out my presentation here, I come across that picture, and it's kind of a neat picture, but the thing that really stood out to me was that road. And I have to question you, and we have a lot of decisions to make here that are coming up with this property tax elimination measure that's out there. And I guess my question to you is, if we lose our local control from our townships, is that what our township roads are going to look like? We have the ability right now as a township to decide in our own township where our funding and how much funding we're going to have. And we know that even with the 3 steps we have, there's times we don't have enough funding to do the work that we need. And that's why, you know, now the legislators have given us the opportunity to have this grant program, you know, so just wanted to update everyone and just remind everyone of what we have in place right now, and to be cautious and really think things through before some of this stuff comes to a vote. So with that, is there any questions for me? Yes, sir.
To raise that levy, township supervisors have that ability alone?
On the emergency one,
Yes.
if it's declared a natural disaster,
Oh,
yes. But it has to be declared a presidential natural disaster though to do it. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Does not require a presidential disaster. That would bring on a FEMA event. This can be even a local disaster that's not big enough to bring on a FEMA event. But it has to be advertised and voted on by the whole township, not the board.
Sorry about that. Okay. Any further questions? Yes, sir.
So our legislative people here, how big a push is there going to be from outside of the state to fund this initiated measure and get it passed? I mean, it seems like our initiated measures are being funded by outside the state people. It's a dog and pony show is what it is. I mean, look at this measure. What a wonderful gift to the non-resident people, non-resident of an ambulance district, a fire district, a township, just all the way up. This could just turn into a total circus.
Right. Yeah, we know that, and that's that's what we're afraid of as well. That there could be that because why would an out-of-stater worry about if he's paying taxes for your road? You know, he doesn't care if you have a road or not. So, and I can't believe that I guess in my thought process anyway, that those out-of-state landowners, if they're not going to pay taxes, are they going to drop your land rent? Yeah, I don't think it's right. Because we know that somewhere this funding has to come through for these roads. So if it's not coming off the property taxes, somewhere it's going to get shifted to a sales tax or something that we're going to end up paying to offset it. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Property tax, we talking about any homeowner in town.
That's any resident in town, correct? For the property tax relief on that $500.
Property tax. Get rid of it.
Oh, that's for everything. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. But the same thing, they still rely on the fact that they have to pay them taxes to build them roads. Are they wanting to, even in town, do they not want to have roads? Do they not want that, the nice roads repaired? The taxes go for that too, so it's not just our roads they're building off of it, Well, and that's why we're trying to educate the people that we are to hopefully that we can get this voted down. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How much money do you think the association?
That we haven't even sat down to really look at, as far as what it's going to cost us. Right now, we're working with the coalition on it, and we're gonna try and go through that process and as far as the full cost, I couldn't answer that for you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, getting back to the property tax elimination and the gentleman asking about it, that includes homes in the cities. Yes, it does. And like, I have two sons that live in Bismarck, and they were really whining about their property tax going up 20%. And, and you've got the urban versus the rural, and we're pretty minor here. That's the scary part, If you have family members that are whining about their property tax, you have to explain to them what's going to happen here if they vote to do away with it.
But they also have to realize that they need snow removal. And road work on their roads. If they eliminate their property tax, those benefits that are out there for your urban individuals are gonna be disappearing as well, so.
They have to realize that eliminating property tax, their specials are gonna go through the ceiling.
Yeah.
And specials are just as much a burden, if not more, than property tax. Now, besides the homes in town, it also would be free money for Walmart. It'd be paying no income tax, no property tax, and even very little income tax, if any, that may be going away too before long. So it'd be pure profit for Walmart. And Bill Gates likes to buy property in North Dakota already, and if he doesn't have to pay property tax on it, he'll like it even more, and who knows what he'll use that land for. Has joined the coalition in opposition. League of Cities, North Dakota Township Law are together in a coalition to oppose.
Yes, sir.
Things over the past couple of months.
That's the response we're hearing from a lot of them too. So we're just trying to get everyone educated that, of the possibility of what could happen, if this goes through. So any further questions? Jerry Klein? Yeah.
And I'm attempting to be neutral, but I understand all the issues, or most of the issues. We're looking, it will require $2.2 billion to offset the property tax measure. The city folks certainly are very supportive somewhat, because that's not a line item they can deduct. The cities can come back with special assessments. What are we going to do out here in the townships or the county? I think of Sheridan County, okay, they won't be able to levy anything, but okay, they can use the sales tax. Okay, how much you're going to generate in some of our little counties, whether it's a township, because you will no longer be doing that. So that there's tons of questions. There is a lot of information. It can get really in the weeds when you start looking at the budgeting process. When some would say the North Dakota budget is $19 billion. Okay, we removed the federal dollars, which we couldn't use to buy down property tax. We used the special assessment dollars, which we couldn't use. And now we're down to 4 or 5 billion, which we still have to fund the schools. We have some incarcerated folks that we have to take care of. We often talk about Medicaid, incarcerate, educate, the 3 biggest budgets. So it's going to really put some pressure on some of the things, some of the dollars that have been coming back to the county, to the townships, to the cities, through a variety of programs the state already has in place, won't be there anymore. So it's just going to be a little different. I think what I'm hearing from Lee and from Larry, you got to educate yourself. There's so much stuff in this. It's not easy. It's not something, yeah, it feels good. Somebody told me in the bar the other night, no, you got to dig in and you got to figure out what's really important, how this is going to work, how it'll work for you, how it'll work for the state. So the point being made, I've heard from some folks out in the valley, up in the Grafton area, you know, my kid wants to farm, and am I going to be competing with land from these out-of-state folks now that are really going to be enjoying the opportunity to come here and not have any cost to their purchases here. So it's a lot of stuff. I'm going to go with Lee and Larry. You got to educate yourself on this stuff.
Thank you, Jerry. We all know that when our townships get behind on our maintenance, on our roads, well, it takes years and it takes a pile of money to get ahead. So, you know, we don't want to step backwards on this deal. Like I was trying to make the point of what we have in place right now. We have the ability to take care of ourselves the best that we can. I mean, to a certain limit. I know that there's townships out there that are maxed out. You know, and that's another reason why the grant program was designed for it. But just make sure that you do a lot of thinking and a lot of research in this situation before you do any voting on it. So any other questions? If not, I will bring on our last speaker for the day, and that will be Mr. Tom Moe. And Dale asked me to make sure that I announce that dinner will be ready at about 12:15, and everyone is welcome to stay. So please stay and have some dinner.
I shouldn't have done that. I didn't think it was gonna turn on that fast. Hey, here we are. I'm Tom Moe. I'm the attorney for the association. It's always interesting to hear about the tax discussion. I suppose I could give you my opinion, but I better not, I suppose. Getting rid of the property tax, one word, it's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Money's got to come from somewhere. I'll tell you. The city question over here. I've got we got farmland, and I'm from Mayville, and I've got an office building in town, and I think I pay $1,600, $1,800 taxes on a quarter, and I think I pay about $1,500 on my office in town. Okay. When the snow comes, I start the tractor on the farm, and I do the driveway, and I might do help the township a little bit. In town, the city does I don't have to worry about city does my snow in front of my office. Okay. So who's going to do that? I'm not driving my tractor in the town to blow snow in front of my office. It ain't going to happen, you know. So it's got to come from someplace. So that's just my opinion. So sorry about that, Mr. President. I probably should have done that. Okay. These are some of the issues and concerns that we hear about. And I throw that up on a slide just so you get kind of jogging a little bit in case you have some questions. Just sing them out anytime. A lot of meeting questions, voting, and who votes at the township meeting, and records and minutes and all that kind of stuff. A lot of road questions with trees in a ditch and stones in a ditch and section line stuff. We get a lot of those kinds of questions. So and then zoning is starting to get to be a bigger topic as well. So those are the areas, but there's all kinds of different things we touch. That's why the phone will ring and I'll answer it. And I never heard that one before. So that happens quite a bit. So I just throw those up, and those are some topics that if something jogs your memory, go ahead. You all got your handbook, and a couple of pieces of this I want to point out to you. Our century code is divided into titles. Okay, so title 58 is all township stuff. Okay, so it's always 58 dash a number. Okay, and there's about 30 pages in there on 58 stuff, and that's all township stuff. So put a paper clip on that, because that'll be where most of your township questions are. All of them, really. And the other one is 24. That's all road stuff, township road stuff. So there's another paper clip in that book. So those are the two areas that probably 90% of your questions are gonna get answered there out of those two sections. 57, we just been talking about that. That's the tax question. I try to stay out of there. But that's where that stuff is. Open records is in Title 44. We just give you a few pages of that, but that's where you would find records and notices for townships. And then zoning is in 58 again, plus your own county and your local zoning stuff. So those are the areas. So when you go to your book, I'll borrow this book for a second. So you go to your book. So I know 58's in there. So there's 30 pages of 58 now. How in the world am I gonna get to see 58? I sure would like to see 58 in there. How am I gonna do that? How am I supposed to do that? Get 50 out. How am I gonna get that? How would you do this? How would you get to 58 in here? Don't think too deep. How about if you take it out of the plastic? Take it out of the plastic. Yeah. You're not going to be able to get in there if you don't take that out of the plastic. And I know you're going to do that when you get home, aren't you? Yeah, I know you, sir. So make sure you do that because that way you can open it up and read through those sections. And if you concentrate on those 58 and 24, I think you'll have a lot of questions answered. Okay, questions on that? All right. I want to talk a little bit about roads. That's why I got a question, why do you township officers, why are you so concerned about roads for? Well, where do you get your authority? Well, there it is. 580307, there's that 58, okay. That's, by the way, that section right there is the list of the powers of electors. There's about 25 points. There's about a whole page full of stuff that the people at the annual meeting can do, sure. And, when you get the annual meeting, when these guys back here, they're saying you get about 1,500 people at your annual meeting, did you say back there? They were saying, yeah, it's just us, right? Yeah, and that's really what happened. But you gotta remember, on annual meeting day, you take your supervisor hat off, you put your resident hat on, okay? You're the resident on that day. So that's when the residents have the say so. This one here, they have the power to direct expenditure of funds raised for repair and construction of roads. That gives the authority to the township people to build roads and construct them. They can levy money for that, okay? That's their authority, okay? And why is that? Well, we have a unified road system in this state. We got interstate highways, we got state highways, county roads, city streets, township roads. It's all part and parcel of our road system. And so we've got a big piece of that. We got a big piece of that, 54,000 miles, right? So that's our job. And you take that one right there, couple it with this one. You supervisors have general supervision over the roads in your township, roads and bridges in your township. So you put those two pieces together, that's your authority. That's your responsibility. That's your obligation. You're obligated to do this because you're part of the road system, okay? So don't let anybody tell you that you have no authority over roads. Not only do you have authority, you have obligations, okay? Then we have our buddies, the section lines. Let's talk about those, okay? In state law, every section line, every mile, there's a 66 foot, 33 feet either side of the section. 2 rods either side, right? 4 rods total. Every mile. Whether there's a road there or not. Let me say that again. Every mile in this state, there's a 66 foot right of way, whether there's a road or not, whether it's on the water, top of the Badlands, doesn't matter. Okay, and why is that? A little history. Statehood 1889. Homestead Act 1863. Okay, and so they said we're going to expand after the Civil War. We're going to get people going west, and we're going to give them a right of way because they learned their lesson from New England. Anybody ever been to New England? You can't find a straight road to save your life out there. Those are going around. They can't. So they learned their lesson. We're gonna expand going west, and we're gonna get people to go out there, and so we're gonna give them places to build roads. We're gonna give them a 66 foot strip every mile. And when you think about it, when those homesteaders got out here, why did they build the road where they did? Because it was on a straight line. It was, they didn't have to buy right away. It was already there. That was part of the deal. And those lines are still out there. They're still there. Okay. So that's pretty important. And you all know what section lines, you can't hardly see that, I don't think, but you know, there's a line there. Okay. And there's a line here. You can kind of see them because we got roads on here. Okay. And in the middle there, there's no road there because it's water, but there's a 66-foot strip there, right? And this one right here, right across the top, if I keep going 2,500 miles, I'm going to run into the Pacific Ocean. There's a 66-foot strip the whole way, right? In North Dakota, at least, we honor that. Even the top of the mountains, Rocky Mountains, there's a 66-foot strip there, but I don't know what Montana does with it, but I know what we do. It's open to the public. It's open to the public for public travel, okay? Then we got this guy here. Can you see that one? Section line goes around the slough and then hooks back up again, okay? But we had to go off the section line to get around it, okay? So 100 years ago, how do you suppose that road got there? 100 years ago. Supervisors at the time to the new township, they're building a road on the say, oh, we got to go around this. How did they get permission to do that? How did they get permission to do that? They just did it, but then they talked to anybody? I think there's one guy they probably talked to. This guy up here, probably talked to him. What do you suppose he said? Go ahead. Absolutely. And why did he say go ahead? Because that's how he's going to get a road, because otherwise the township would have to stop right there and he's never going to get to his farmstead. Sure, his new farmstead that he just homesteaded. So absolutely he did that, okay? And how did they formalize that deal? They write it down? Probably not. What did they do? How did they formalize that? No, they didn't play a drum. They did what? Come on, shake my hand. God. Politician that doesn't want to shake my hand. How about that? But that's what they did. That's what they did, didn't they? Call it a handshake easement. Maybe not, maybe figuratively they did. But the point is the guy agreed to that. Okay. Now what's wrong here? What's going to happen? Fast forward 100 years, new owner, new guy buys a quarter. What's the new guy going to say about that road? Get that road off my property. That's what he's going to say. And I've heard it many times. And they're going to block this thing off, and they're get that road. We don't want that road there. Go through the section line. You can't go through the section line. It's water there. Come on. Guy's getting goofy. Okay? Well, what's the township do? Well, we got an easement. Prove it. Well, we shook hands 100 years ago. Well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Proving that handshake. Don't think too deep here. Come on, guys. We're dead. Okay? We're dead. Maybe the township wrote something down at the time back in the 1902 minutes. Client showed up and said, let's be okay to go around the school on section 5. It'd be great if it was in the minutes, but probably isn't. Okay. So what are we going to do? Because this guy wants to block this road, and it's obviously a township road. We've been maintaining it. Can't go across water, but he's being stupid. Okay, what are we going to do? We should have this documented somehow. So what can we do? This might be a candidate for this thing here, a road by prescription. Okay, what's that? If a road's been in, see 24, see, I told you it's in 24, see, I told you that. Public roads which have been open for 20 successive years can be declared public roads, whether they've been lawfully established or not. So there you go. The road's been, not only it's been open for 20 years, but it's open for 100. So township could easily say, okay, we'll have a little meeting, we'll have a little hearing, and we'll put it in the notes that we had, this road's been open for 100 years, we've been maintaining it. It's a road by prescription. It's a public road, and that's going to take care of this guy. But wait a minute, he's got an objection, right? Because it says it's been in use for the prescribed period, but no objections. Wait a minute, he's objecting. Wait a minute. When did that 20 years start? When did that 20 years start on that road? Last week? No. When? 100 years ago. That's when the 20 years started, it was 100 years ago. And there obviously wasn't any objection, because remember the guys, the homesteader at the time agreed to it, right? Just didn't write it down, but there's been no objection for 100 years. This person today, he's too late. He's too late with his objection. Should have been done 100 years ago. Well, it wasn't live then, but that's when the objection should have been. And of course, he'll fuss around and stew and take you to court. That's an easy case to win because the township, you found a road by prescription, you've got proof that it's been in use for that long. The judge is going to give you an order that says it's a road by prescription, and we'll tell you that the 66-foot right of way or whatever the judge might say, they'll establish how wide that is, and you're okay. Okay. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. So, but notice the issue here. What was the issue? The issue was the road was not on a section line. Section line roads you don't have to worry about because you have that automatic right of way. But here it's off the road. So you got to use that prescriptive road process, what I just talked about. You have to have a little short little hearing and got to do all that. Might have to go to court. Is there another easier way to do it? Another easy way to do it? How about if we go to that landowner today, if he's cooperating, let's go get an easement today. Let's do today what these guys should have done 100 years ago with that handshake. We should write it. They could have written it down then. They didn't. Let's do it today. If we have a cooperating landowner, let's get an easement today and get that in the record, get that in the courthouse, and then that new landowner really doesn't have any way to fight. He doesn't have a way to fight anyway, but at least he's going to stop him at the court in his tracks. Okay. Roads on a section. Okay. So I got some other ones here. There's a pretty common one. See the section line here, section line. There's a quarter line road. Okay. Down here, it finally hooks up with the north-south one there. Okay. So that road right there does not have an automatic right of way. Why not? Because it's not on a section line. Okay. Doesn't have an automatic 66 feet. But I know this road, the township went right away. They've got an easement here. It's a good road. It's on their system. They're getting gas tax for it. They maintain it well. They've got a document. They've gotten an easement. And I think they did that. They probably did that road many years ago anyway. So, but notice it's not on a section line. So they did something about it. So they don't have that problem. I think I got another one here. Oh, there's one. Section line, right? Section line. But we go off, we go take an angle down the farmstead here. Okay, so this would be public, the public 66 foot. Of course, the 66 feet keeps going, but there's nothing there. And then it turns off and there we go. That's private right there. So how did this happen? Once again, new landowner, new guy that bought the farmstead. And he says, hey, township, how come you're not blowing snow on my road? And the township says, huh? Why aren't you blowing snow on my road? Township says, we never have. Never. What do you mean? Well, the guy that used to live there, he always did it himself. He blew his own snow, and he in fact even throws some of his own gravel. In fact, he also did the section line up to the main road. He did that too. We've never touched it. Now I got a new guy. Now what do you do? Well, I suppose the township should be doing this one, but they really shouldn't be doing this one because that's private property. Really shouldn't be doing that one. Unless they make some sort of agreement, I suppose they could. I suppose they could go through the prescriptive road process and make that a public road, but that's not necessarily because it kind of ends at the guy's farmstead. So that's a public road. Anybody can then use it. So that's a problem, and there's really no answer, but township's got to realize, and we got to educate this new guy. We got to educate him, say, hey, that's not a public road, and you're going to have to do your own snow removal there. Maybe you should, when you moved out, maybe you should have bought yourself a snowblower, maybe. 4-wheel drive pickup would have been nice. Sure, yeah. There's another one. Section line. There's section lines this way. There's one north and south. Obviously, it's going through water. And then it catches back up and there's a driveway that is on a section. That is a section line because it goes right there. There's a 66-foot street underwater, 66-foot strip under the water there. That's a public road right there, sure. Even though it's a driveway. And that might be maybe that's the one where we want to do an abandonment process. And what's that? You know, townships, you can close a road. You can close roads and abandon them. Mine the gravel out. You gotta have a hearing and there's a process for that. You can do that if you determine you don't need it anymore, okay? Probably don't need this one because it's really a driveway. But you can go one step further, or the process, you can actually get rid of the 66 foot, but that's county commissioner stuff. They're the only ones that have the authority to do that. They actually get rid of the 66 feet, give the easement back to the adjacent landowner, and it's no longer a public right of way at all. That's a really extraordinary step, and we don't like to see you do that very often because we don't want to lose that right of way. Because if we lose that right of way, those homesteaders rolling over their graves and saying, what the heck you guys doing with my right of way? Don't do that. But sometimes it might be wise to do that, possibly. Okay. Well, yeah, then we got those guys, subdivision roads. We don't see too many subdivisions out in the country, but every once in a while you'll come across a development. Section line, right? Road goes off into the subdivision, okay, and hooks back up again. So the question that these guys are gonna ask the township is what? What are those guys gonna ask the township? Who takes care of the road? And the township's gonna call me and they're gonna say, what? Do we have to take care of that road? You're gonna call me and you're gonna say that. I get that question a lot. Okay, do we have to take care of that road? And I'll give you my standard lawyer answer. When you ask me a question, I'll say, what? It depends. It depends. On what? I want to know a lot of stuff about this right here. How old is it? Did the township ever make an agreement 50 years ago when that thing was built? When it was surveyed, we got different lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, you got different lots. So what does the survey say about roads in it? So the plats in the courthouse, you can go look at it. And if you have one of those in your township, or you should have that plat in your file, so you may as well have it in your hip pocket. Was it ever this one probably wasn't, but was it ever a town? And sometimes you get these little burgs, that are there's a bunch of them around here that used to be cities, maybe 1889, 90, 1900, and they dissolved, right? And so, but there's still a plat for them. There's roads and streets there. What are we supposed to do with those? I want to find out what those were. So we'll look at the original language of the plat. Sometimes it says the roads were dedicated to the public. Sometimes it says that. Okay, what does that mean? Oh, you're the public, so maybe that's your road. Was it ever an incorporated city? If so, when it dissolved, there's a plan of dissolution that's in the courthouse. It's in the auditor's file someplace in this file cabinet. Let's go look at that. See what does it say. Sometimes individual lots, they'll say we own each individual lot owner owns to the center of the road on their deeds. Well, that's pretty obvious. It's not a public road. In fact, I just ran into one of those just the other day that it said that. Was there an old agreement with the township? We want to go back and look at those old minutes. Is there a homeowners association? That's kind of where each guy throws some money in the pot, like you do in a condominium. I've heard that, same kind of deal. And they buy themselves a snowplow, or they contract with the township, or they hire a contractor to do their work. Sometimes a lot of people are doing that. They can form a special assessment district. They can tax themselves. Okay, so we're just talking about specials. They can tax themselves, and not just the entire township, but just those homeowners there. And I always say, when you have one of these deals, or even if you have the one farmstead, go talk to these people. Go talk to them. They don't know what a township is. And they'll say, why isn't a snowplow here at 4 o'clock in the morning like it is in Bismarck? Because you don't live in Bismarck anymore. That's why. You don't live in town anymore. You're in the country. So we're not going to do that. So you got to go talk to them. You have to go and visit with them. And of course, this last one is, I think, most important. How much of their tax dollars goes to the township? They got to realize that. Each homeowner there get a $1,000 tax bill on their house. Okay, they think that money goes to the snowplow. It doesn't. In fact, townships get about what, 5% probably. So on a $1,000 tax bill, they're getting what? $50. That's all you get. In fact, sometimes farmers need to be told that, because they're paying Their property tax, well, I'm paying taxes out here, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but the township only gets $47 out of your tax bill. That's all we get. You can't buy much gravel with $47. That's all the township gets. You gotta educate people sometimes. You have to educate them. And obviously in the prior discussion, $47 is pretty important to us. It really is. Okay, so and that's all public record. You can get that. You know, you go show the guy the tax bill. Where did you get that tax bill? Well, it's in the courthouse. It's public record. Anybody can look at it. Sure. You can educate people. And if you educate people, you'll help them out. You'll help out a lot of future problems, I think. So, okay. Any questions about all that stuff so far? Let's talk about our buddies, the Prairie Trails. Everybody knows what they are, right? Okay. Ought to be 18 years old again on Saturday night. I stopped and when I got here, I stopped and fueled up at Senex and I said, the deputy was there. I saw him saying, am I ever glad you're here and not 10 miles south about 10 minutes ago? Not because I was a little late getting here. Well, anyway. So that term is not found in the law. We all know what they are, but that's what the technical term, that's an unimproved section line. Okay. It's a section line. It's got 66 foot right away. Obviously people are using it. So what's your obligation, townships? What's your obligation? Obligation is to take care of known hazards. That's the term. Okay. Known hazards. You don't have to grade this thing. You don't have to gravel it. You don't have to build an interstate highway there. You don't have to do that, but you know people are using it. So if you got a rock pile on the end down there, you got to take care of that. You got a washout, big drop off. That's a known hazard. And sure, somebody might, you got responsibility for that. Okay, you don't have to fill some dirt in it for all you got to do, but it's a known hazard. That's really your own responsibility. But it is a public right of way. Okay, sir. Those are problematics, you know, that's a problem because there's probably a reason why there's no road there because we got a washout, constant washout. Well, that might be the time to get the, you know, the road closed thing, sign it properly and all that kind of stuff. You know, those are tough. Those are tough, but you should try to notify the driver of the problem. You know, that's what you want to try to do. Yeah. And what about it? What do you think? You think no? Okay. Sounds good. Unless it's what? If it's a known hazard, and it, you know, it's a ridge is one thing, but is it a ridge that's 5 feet tall? I mean, it's a case by case basis. Okay. Okay. Now, obviously, if it's a road, if you've called this a minimum maintenance road, then you're supposed to maintain this thing once a year because you're going to get some gas tax for it. That's the deal we made with the legislature. You can have some minimum maintenance roads out there, sign them properly. You have to maintain them, and we'll give you a little gas tax. But then this is probably not a minimum maintenance road because it doesn't look like we've done any maintenance. Okay, so it's not a road. It's not a road in your system. It's an unimproved section. Okay, that's the term. But if you know it's a hazard, you got a big ridge there, and that could take, that could be a problematic, And here's the problem: you got a kid on a 4-wheeler driving down that thing, and of course, if you're a kid, that's where you're going to go, right? And you're driving way too fast. That's what kids do, right? And they hit. There's a problem up there. Well, that's going to happen. So maybe we need to do a little something. If it's a really hazardous type of thing, that's a judgment call. That's a judgment call. And a little knowledge, and who's using this, who's making those tracks, is that the guy with the land down there? It looks like this track is used a bit more than once a couple times a year. It's a little bit more than that. So you gotta be aware of what's going on. Absolutely. Sir.
Feeding right over the section line.
Seating right over it?
Yes.
You mean like that?
Right. And of course, we explained to him that the section line.
Yep.
We did get him to understand that. We took the maintainer and he didn't make a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
He leveled, he took all the crop went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still a prayer trail.
Yeah.
But now he has to farm on that side of Prayer Trail and on this side.
Yeah.
But he was agreeable to it,
Yeah.
really had no choice. It was a section line.
Yes. And good point, because I put this one up here because, you know, obviously, you know, there's a 66-foot strip there, but both of those guys are obviously in agreement and they know what they're doing there. But you did right. Hey, there is a right of way there. It's okay to plant it. It's okay to do that. It's good weed control, but it's just so you're aware of that. And like this one here, it's a little more obvious, obviously. And those guys are obviously cooperating there too. But that's pretty common. And that's common too, right there. Very common. But you got to remind the guys, okay, there is a right of way there. No, there isn't. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. You can, you know, after 30, 40 years, you guys forget. There's a right of way there and you can go ahead and plant it. That's okay. Good weed control, but you have to agree. You guys have to agree with each other. If you don't, then we're gonna do what you did. We're gonna make a path down there and you gotta farm it and you're not gonna be able to farm that thing, sure. Because it's right away. So if you get cooperating guys, it's easy to do. Now here's the question. You get a guy that's gonna buy a piece of property up there in the corner and he wants to build a house. Wants to build a house because he bought a piece of property, okay. He's gonna come to the township, what's he gonna ask you? What's that? Yeah, I want, you guys will build me a road, right? Your answer is? No, you don't have to. You don't have to. Our state law, we got that in the last, I suppose 20, 25 years ago, I suppose we got a ruling in the state law that says, townships do not have to build roads unless it's economically feasible and good, a benefit to the entire township. There's some criteria there. And so you can say, no, we don't have to, but guy needs a road. Where's he going to build it? He's going to have to build it himself. You're gonna have to give him specifications. You're gonna have to give him the specs. Where's he gonna build it? On the section line. That's where it's a right of way. That's where, just like that homesteader 150 years ago, where'd they build a road to their place? They built it on the section line because the right of way was there. It's still there. So that's where it's gonna have to go. But of course, you can build that road with his own money and he's gonna build it according to your specs. You're basically gonna inherit a public road, aren't you? Sure. You're gonna inherit a road which you're gonna have to maintain. That's what happens because it's on a section. So. Okay. And that one I just put, that's the view from the top of that same intersection. I just put that red line in there, but the only way you can tell is that you can kind of see the approaches, but other than that, there's no way you can tell. But that 66-foot strip is there. So absolutely. So I think we must be getting close, but I was gonna just one more slide. I was gonna tell you about sometimes I get to go driving out of state, and so every once in a while you see something, you stop. I gotta back up. I gotta take a picture. So I thought I'd take a picture of this guy here. That's in the right of way right there. Back when they put the curb in, they put the curb right around a tree, so they really didn't want to touch that tree for some reason. I don't know. Grandma must have planted it, but that's obviously an accident waiting to happen. And so that tree probably should have been removed early on. And I was kind of chuckling to myself because this tree is a one-stop shop because the church is right there, the funeral home's right there, and that is a cemetery right there. So it's nice to see that other states have problems with right of way. It's not just us. So, okay. Anybody got any questions here before we quit? Sir, go ahead.
People down roads that don't really work.
Yeah.
What's the legality in that when it comes to the tow truck and all that stuff?
Well, of course it's their problem, but I mean, you should probably bill Mr. Google, I guess, is what you got to do. But that is a problem, you know, and I've thought about it. We've had that question a couple of times, you know, and that's something maybe we ought to talk to NDTOA about. Maybe is there something that they could intervene with the powers that be on some of that stuff? I don't know. The National Association, you know, because yeah, they'll send you down roads that aren't there, but you know. Suppose Google and GPS knows where the section lines are, and so I suppose that system just assumes it's the road there. But the driver always has most of the responsibility. When we talk about these accidents and things like, I mean, you know, if I ran into that tree, man, I got I have most of the responsibility because I drove into a tree for God's sakes. Man, you know, I watch what I'm doing, but foggy night, you blow a tire, can't see, hey, township, why is that tree there? You know, that's not a good position to be in, but rather than lay awake at night worrying about that, that's why we buy the liability insurance, of course, to protect us. But you know, there again, you know, the tow truck, I guess if they wanted to make a claim against the township's insurance, they suppose they could, but then I suspect they probably would deny it. And so, but that, some things you just can't fix. You just can't fix. But that, I've heard that, and I don't know what you can do about it. I don't know what we can do about GPS, but we'd have to get next to the manufacturer somehow. That's above my pay grade, but yeah, it is a problem. It is a problem. What else we got? Anybody gonna be changing their annual meeting date? A little late to do that, but because you still got to have that notice. But now Larry was talking about that. You can get the law changed, so now you can get off that traditional third Tuesday in March if you want to. It's all bittersweet for me. I mean, it's been third Tuesday in March in statehood, and I'm not quite that old, but it's been that way forever. But I think it'll be good from the standpoint now. Maybe if you can, maybe you could have some Friday meetings or even some Saturday meetings, perhaps. And so maybe you could get some people that are working in town. Maybe they now can come to your meeting, you know, so you can get that 1,500 people to show up, you know. So it might be good. And like Larry was saying too, you can also put in a snow date, you know. So if you have an alternate date, and if it's in March, that qualifies for an annual meeting, and so you don't have to worry about having a special meeting, which is a separate set of rules. You got to deal with that. So the only caution I give you on if you change your meeting date is make sure you still have to have that newspaper notice. You got to make sure you do that. Don't mess with that, because I'm a little concerned about all of a sudden if we have meetings all over the place, all over the month of March, we're not going to have proper notice. So be careful about that. If you change your meeting date, make sure you have good notice. Sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, what it says is that whatever is stated in the paper, if that meeting is supposed to start at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you were planning on doing it at noon.
Yeah.
You wait till 2 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you get together at noon and do the illegal stuff, but yeah, you know, and the whole point of notice, you got to remember, if I had land in your township, I don't, so don't start any rumors. But if I did, and I said, doggone it, you know, I want to go see those guys. And I can't get, so I'll subscribe to, I'll get a copy of the paper, and I'll look at, okay, those guys are meeting at 2 o'clock, take off from Mayville, and I'll get here because I'm an absentee. And you guys already had your meeting. You know, there you go. You know, and that's the whole point of having a meeting at a stated time, because you never know who's going to show. You never really know, because that's the time when the public. And if I was an absentee, I don't get to vote, but I certainly want to talk to you guys. You know, in fact, I heard that. I was talking to a friend of mine in the cities, and he owns land back home in Mayville. And I said, I was telling him about this township meeting because he was griping about something, and because there's an absentee landowner who's concerned about his road because his township wasn't doing very good on his road, because you know, his renter was griping because he's from, you know, I went to school and he's from home, but he said, hey, maybe they'll have a Saturday meeting and I can come back. I'll come back from the cities and go to my township meeting, see the guys again. So that could happen too, you know, so which we get some of those absentees to show up. They can't vote, but they'd be good to see them, you know, absolutely. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Sir.
That it's a length of meeting.
Post when the polls close. Larry, help me on that one. There used to be some rule on it. Is that still there? You got to post when the polls close? I don't think so. I know old law it was, but way back. It has to be announced. You have to announce when the polls will close. Yeah, at the meeting. So yeah. So remember, our township election is at a meeting. It's not like when we vote for governor or legislator, and where you can show up and you got to actually physically be there. You know, it's a meeting vote, you know, so that's the difference. So, but I think you just have to announce it, so. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, right. We've lost a lot of county papers. We've lost a lot of them. Yep. What county are you, what county are you talking about? Okay, yeah. You know, every county has to have an official paper. Okay, it might be not in your county anymore. That's what's going on, you know? Yeah. But whatever, eventually, that's one of the things we vote on at the general election is who's gonna be our county newspaper. That's always on the ballot, you know? So eventually that will change, you know, so that's our county newspaper. It might be out of a different county, but that's our official paper. Yeah. You can, but you have an official county newspaper now, right? You do, so that's it. That's it. Now, you can put it in another paper if you want, that's fine, you know. In fact, sometimes that's good to do it in a paper that's closer, but you have an official paper and you're gonna have that official paper until December 31st, and then the new one takes over. It might be Bismarck, but yeah. If you have another newspaper in your county that's not an official paper, now I'm thinking of we just were in Castleton last night, Castleton Reporter. The newspaper in Castleton is not the official county newspaper. Fargo Forum is. But those Castleton townships, they use it because at the annual meeting, they've designated that paper as their official paper. They've done it at the annual meeting, but they have one, they have a paper there, so. But newspapers are getting fewer and far between, you bet. But we still have to publish someplace. Sure. You have to go through it. You have to go, the annual meeting has to prove it. Yeah. And it has to be an official, it can't be a shopper.